In 1991,
Okay, so
I
he
was
started
born
over.
in Congo. When war came, my family was separated and left in disarray. I eventually ended up in Boston. Soon, PTSD revealed itself. Growing up alone, my depression heightened. Despite it all, I found perseverance and the will to live. Though I struggle with PTSD, I choose to be impactful.
Though I struggle with vulnerability, I choose to be strong.
Though I struggle with anxiety, I choose to be confident.
Though I struggle with depression, I choose to be resilient.
Though I feel insecure, I choose to feel confident.
Though I struggle with expectations, I choose to be present.
Though I am pulled by different extremes, I choose to stay balanced.
Though I struggle with dark thoughts, I choose to be confident.
You see, it takes all of you to just make a change in yourself. Therefore, it will take all of us to make a change in the world. This is Drowsy Wellness.
Yeah. I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
That's pretty new, right?
No.
No, you haven't.
No. It's been so active listening. So what is, when I say active listening, what is active listening? What do you think active listening is?
Not passive listening.
It's the opposite of passive listening. That's right. Anybody else? Active listening.
Has to do with engagement in the listening process.
Yes. Yeah. Does active listening happen during music?
Yes.
How so?
You have to listen to who you're playing with to sound good and
Yeah.
listen to yourself.
Yeah.
Get better.
Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah. If we're not listening actively to ourselves, and by that I mean we usually have a running commentator. Don't do that. You're not good enough, or you're not experienced enough, or you're not tall enough. You're not pretty enough. You didn't practice enough. Right? That's the running commentator. And when we listen to that, it inhibits what we are actually able to put out here, or how we then listen to other people, because we're actually over here listening to our own selves. So remember earlier I talked about improvisation? That has a lot to do with active listening, right? So think, feel, express, to express that genuine kind of feel, to express that genuine improv through your music, starts with actively listening for what matters, what is important, the presence of which will add to the music experience, or to whoever you're improvising with, or even if you're improvising with yourself, by yourself. So this here is a picture of a painting that one of my students created. We were doing an active listening exercise, and it was about music. We were just listening to music on a playlist, and I had some classical music playing, and after that I asked them to draw whatever was coming to mind, and this is what he came up with. So anybody wants to guess how old this student was? Just a quick guess.
15?
15? That's good. Anybody else?
9.
9? That's good. Anybody else? One more. 6 years old. And this is a student who's never had any artistic training, Nothing. Right? Active listening. And this is what he was able to produce. And you thought that was a 15-year-old. 6 years old. Right? Now imagine what you can create when you're actively listening to what matters. Like even right now, you're listening to your own thoughts. When I came up, you were listening to your own thoughts about who this person is, where is he coming from, what is he gonna say, what is he gonna, right? We do this all the time, it's not a bad thing, but when we put that in check, then we can actually be present and listen for what matters, the presence of which will make a difference. Yeah? Okay, let's move on. This is just another story of active listening. I had to do a lot of active listening for this particular student. Does anybody here remembers the 2016 election cycle? It doesn't matter where you stand on the political spectrum, it's okay. But this student showed up to my classroom very upset, just very angry about the results. And we talked about it in class. And we didn't have, so here's a side note. If you're planning on teaching, sometimes you're gonna have students that are gonna show up and either they're not practiced or something's going on in their life. Your plan sometimes is not gonna go accordingly. You have to be willing to let go of your plan and meet your student where they are. If you hold on to your plan, like so tight, not only are you putting the other person, you know, you're doing them disservice, you're also doing yourself disservice as an educator, right? It's okay, you have to be willing to improvise, because sometimes you plan. So anyway, so remember I talked about think, feel, express. So a lot of times we have, you know, internally, we have to understand this internal language and what is going on and how to work with it. But then externally, there are so many factors. And when he came to me, we had a conversation, and then what we did, we played drums. We just played. I just allowed us to just not have a normal class and just play. The following class, I just asked him to draw, to just paint. And this is what he came up with. And what he told me, this is not my own interpretation, is that the previous class, when he showed up, this is 1 week before, that he had this cloud of anger, and you know, it had the blue swirl in there that was, you know, there's possibility, it's a little, you can see that he can, you know, get better, but it's still a cloud of anger, which zoomed over here to just being super angry about what happened, right? But as you can see over here, towards the middle of the week, things got a little better. It was sunny, it was bright, there's possibility. So he wanted to hang out over here, right? Have you ever had a bad experience, you're like, oh, like you just feel really bad about it, but you're able to find your groove? Yeah, this is where he wanted to hang out. So externally, there's all these things happening, but really, internally, he knew that this is where he wanted to be. You know, you can even see with the color, it's more bright, right? There's some yellows and light blues over here, and avocado green. It's brighter. Internally, if we can find this, then we can learn how to work with external pressures. Before you perform, the gut feeling that you have, the butterflies, this is it. Externally, again, it goes back to think, feel, express. I'm not good enough, I didn't practice enough, what are they gonna think? Externally, that's what's happening. But if we can find our center internally, then we can present genuinely, right? Then our music can come off genuinely with flow, right? So with communication here, nonverbal communication, this is a very important part of humans. We like I'm doing this, you know. When I do this, can you tell what I'm saying? Flow. You know, maybe some people can get it, maybe not. But a lot of our communication is nonverbal. So when we're able to communicate in that way and connect with people in a nonverbal perspective, I mean that's music. All of music is nonverbal, right? Unless there are lyrics in your music, right? But it's mostly nonverbal, and so try to communicate with people in a way that can you can get your thought across musically, think, feel, express, without using any words. How can you do that, right? Well, it takes time and practice. Obviously, y'all have had a lot of time in practice, and you do that all the time. And so that's just another way of getting to that. So attunement. I'm gonna get to what this picture is all about, but attunement, in this case, we're talking about how can we attune to our internal differences, our internal biases, and you know, and feeling bodily what is going on musically. So again, the first reference, think, feel, express. The feel part is the attunement. The longer you spend around music, like the vibrations of the music that you're spending actually does shape your cells, your body. It's called embodied cognition. And the more time you spend around that, the more you start to just express your music in a way that there's flow in that. And so that's where attunement comes in. This exercise, I actually blindfolded this student. And I asked him to play the drums. Okay, so can anybody tell me what you see when you look at this painting?
Looks like a flying saucer.
Flying saucer. Yeah, I get that a lot. Anybody else? What else do you see?
Like an eye.
Yes. Anybody else?
Hurricane.
Yeah,
Hurricane.
that's what I think too. Hurricane.
A hurricane? It's none of those. So we were using an electric drum set. This is a snare drum, right? So this is what he was seeing when he was blindfolded. This is a hi-hat, and this is like a floor tom over here, right? So again, this is, you know, imagery, how it can play, you know, so many tricks on us. But this is what he was seeing, that which allowed him to connect with the drum, right? Again, embodied cognition. You do something so, like your scales, so like over and over again, you know where the fingering is, you know where, you know, to hit things and so on and so forth. That it becomes second nature. Okay, let's move on. So you heard me talk a lot about leaving your comfort zone, self-expression. Okay, so we talked about listening. We talked about communication. Okay, with attunement, it also has to do with collaboration. So I forgot to mention that part. And the other part of it is self-expression. This is just a little something that I drew, but this is usually where we want to be. Okay. This here is usually where we have a hard time being in. And if you're here, you're just either sweating or you're just like, this is not gonna happen, or maybe crying. It's usually not a good place to be. But I'm gonna ask you, where do you think learning happens?
Challenge.
Why do you say that?
Challenge or panic, because learning is like we're learning something we don't know, so it's kind of challenging. And sometimes if that's hard, it become like panic.
Anybody else? Where does learning happen?
I don't think you learn in the panic section. Like, I feel like if you're panicked, you're not gonna be able to absorb a lot of things. Like, you need to be the right level of being challenged.
You can also say though, that in panic, you're just learning things that have nothing to do with what you want to learn.
Yeah,
You're learning to fear the subject
You're frantic,
or-
yeah,
right.
you don't like
Mm.
you don't feel like any, like with a challenge, you could learn something and it might take you a long time, but you might actually like learn a new skill in the end, but with panic, it's just like, it's too hard for you, so you might give up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. None of your answers were wrong, by the way. This is where fight or flight, like kicks in over here. It's either like I'm gonna deal with it just because, but like you're actually not learning anything, but it's because you're surviving. Survival mode doesn't actually teach you anything. But over here, this is where we build grit. Grit is developed in a challenge, right? And so, but when we're over here, it gets so easy. We're so comfortable in doing that. Like we're so comfortable doing the same scale, or we're so comfortable doing the same rhythm or the same, pattern over and over and over again, and we're not pushing ourselves to either improvise or play with other people. That it's routine, it's normal, and right. You see where I'm going with that. But here's another thing about the comfort zone. The longer we stay in here, the closer the outside rings, this is called a concentric circle. The closer the outside rings get to the comfort zone. So it becomes even harder to leave your comfort zone the longer we stay in here, right? It becomes even more challenging, even more panicky because this gets closer. So I'm challenging you today to think about what is your mountain? What is difficult for you? What is something that for you feel like, okay, if I leave my comfort zone, like this is really hard, but do it in a way that doesn't bring you panic, in a way that allows you to be in a position of grit, in a position of a challenge where you're continuously trying to develop a skill or something. Okay? Let's see. I wanted to show you a video of performance, but I have a newer video from over the summer that I'm gonna get to. This is a video of some children. I do a lot of work with children, even though I do some work with adults as well. Yeah, I love the kiddos, helping develop socio-emotional learning skills, transferable skills that can be used in many different areas. And so this is just some work I did over the summer in 2 different places, early education centers and a camp. So here we go. Do we have time for one more? Maybe I can show you one more video.
Sure. And then
Yeah.
go to Q&A.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I'll show you one more video. This is with adults, college students. Okay.